Time. Terry's not here because this week is the car conference, the car meetings and whatever else they do when they get together and
They drink. That's what they do. They drink and figure out how can we change the contract this year that serves no purpose, but just makes things more complicated. That's what they do.
They need us. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, hopefully that's not what they're doing, but certainly Terry would be no part of that. But today, as I'm sure you guys know, because there's more people on this call than have ever been on before, we are doing advertising. And the reason that we're doing, I mean, not the reason, because we do it every single Monday, we do something of interest to realtors. But particularly we're doing advertising because one of our agents got a DRE, not even a board thing, a DRE inquiry as to his advertising. He had an issue with his website. He had an issue with his online his Facebook thing, and he had an issue with his ads, all three. And they brought them up, 1, 2, 3, show us your ads, show us this. Why did you do this? What's the story? Well, there is no story. The story is mea culpa. We did this. We shouldn't have done it. We know better now. And that's the best we can do. We can't pretend to try to talk around it. We didn't have, okay, so we're going to go over the rules. So you're going to see, because if we had done this before then, and the person who did the ad was with us, then this wouldn't have happened, because all of the things that are problems are covered in what we're going to do today. Okay, let's share screen. Okay, the way advertising is broken down is by advertising of your services, of just your services. And then the next one will be advertising actual property. And then there's some other miscellaneous ones that we don't do as much. But the first one is advertising real estate services. So you are advertising yourself. You're trying to get a seller or a buyer. Okay, is a real estate broker or office required to disclose license status in all advertising? And you're going to see at the beginning here, for a while, it's going to break it up into the ethics requirement and the legal requirement. And in some cases, like here, they're both the same. But in some cases, they're not the same. Where the DRE doesn't care about something, we have an ethical obligation. So it depends, but it doesn't matter, because as long as we have either a legal or an ethical obligation, then we have an obligation. We don't need both to make us give us an obligation. Okay. Yes, anytime you advertise your services, they have to know whether you're a broker, an agent, a realtor, any of those kind of things. And legal is the same way. So bottom line, yes, for realtors, you always have to disclose license status. If you're licensed and you're placing an ad, so you can't just place an ad and not put your name, and it wouldn't do any good to place an ad for yourself if you didn't have your name on it, right? Okay.
Hey, Cindy, I have a question.
Yeah.
So placing an ad, so that would be, let's say you want to do like a Facebook ad, has to be on there. So any sort of advertising that you're doing, a mailer, a Facebook,
anything, they have to be able to tell what your license status is.
Got it.
And you're going to see as we go, there's different ways to tell. If you put the name of your company, then sometimes that will work. It depends. Okay. Must a real estate broker or real estate office's name be included in all advertising real estate services? Now they're asking if the broker or the office name has to be in all your advertising. Okay, so the legal requirement says no. The law does not require the actual name of the real estate office or broker to be used when they're advertising real estate services. Okay. They changed all these rules in 2018 and they had a comparison, but we're so far past that we just need to know what it is now. There used to be exceptions for rental advertisement, but there's no exceptions for that anymore. No, sorry. Exception for sale, open houses, and direction. Oh, right. And this is going to come up a bunch of times. So if you have a for sale, rent, lease, open house, directional sign, and it has no name on it, not your name, not any name, just like turn right or an arrow or open house, and that's all that's on the sign, you don't need the broker's name. Okay, so if there's no identification, if it's just a for sale, rent, lease, open house, or directional sign, and it has no name on it. Okay, so these signs are not need to include a license status disclosure as long as they are either the responsible broker's identity appears somewhere or there is no license identification information at all. So every arrow sign, every leading sign, if you don't put your name on it, you don't need to put the broker's name on it.
Cindy, what if we just put the phone number on the arrow sign? The phone number.
I don't think you can do that. I think either you're going to put just the arrow or you're going to have to put all of it. It's just, you know, that's the requirement. Okay. So the ethics requirement is also, if the property being advertised is listed with the realtor office, the actual office name must be specified. Okay. Real estate law simply requires identification as a licensee, but the NAR Code of Ethics also requires disclosure of the name of the office. So per the rules of ethics, we have to put the name of the office. And I know it probably comes up in a question. You don't need the broker ID, the broker DRE number, just the name of the office. So yes, all for realtors, yes, a real estate broker or office's name must be included in all advertisements that have your name there. Okay, must a real estate licensee disclose his or her own name in advertising services? Well, gosh, how do you advertise your services without disclosing your name? That would be hard, but okay. So no, there's no legal requirement that a real estate licensee disclose his or her name in a first point of contact or other type of material. Gee, looking for buyers, no name. I don't know. I won't, but it's anyway, you're not required by law to do it, but it doesn't make sense without it. Okay. If the name of the real estate office is mentioned in the ad, must the designation as an agent, broker, etc., also be specified? Okay, so if the office's name doesn't make it clear, then you might have to do that. But if your office's name is Full Realty Services, I think someone could get from that's a real estate broker, you know, in connection with a real estate ad. It's not going to be the example they give is when the corporation's name is just the John Smith Company. So yeah, if your corporation name was the name of the broker who started it, you know, Bob Smith Corporation, and that's all it was, and there's no way to tell on there if they're a real estate company or what they are or who they are, then you would have to put more information, but most places aren't like that.
So what about Century 21 Masters? Is it assumed that because
Century 21
is a real estate company that?
Yeah, I think it is. I think they're trying, I mean, their example of just John Smith Company has nothing to do with real estate, nothing.
Okay.
You know, and if they had an example that was closer, they would have used it. So, because in some of these, they use examples that are so close, it's hard to tell. So, anyway, I think that, yeah, we use in the ad. Yes, I think ours are fine. Must the salesperson also use the broker's name in an advertisement when using the salesperson's name and our telephone number? Okay, so if you're putting your name and telephone number, see question 2, yes, you have to put your broker's name. We already saw that. You have to put your broker's name on anything that is advertising your services with your name on it. Okay, the broker's name need not be in the ad. Oh, illegally, it's not required, but it is required as an ethical requirement. According to NAR Code of Ethics, the name of the firm must be present in any advertising of real estate services or a property listed with the firm. Therefore, it follows that all realtors' advertisements of real estate services or properties listed by the office must contain the office name. So I guess they got that roundabout, but they got there. So yes, everything has to have the name of your office. Okay, must a licensee identify him or herself as a broker, agent, etc., when advertising his or her own property for sale if it is not listed with the firm? Okay, so you're selling your property it's not called improper, it's called, what's it called when you sell your own property?
For sale by owner.
Oh yeah, for sale by owner. So you're selling your own property and you're not listing it with the company, you're just, because anyone can sell their own property, okay? So legal requirements when you sell your own property is that you don't have a duty really to do anything because you're not doing it under a DR license, you're doing it on your own, okay? But ethics requirements are different because we're in California and, you know, and I think we have a lot of influence over how the ethics goes. In other words, unlike the law, the NAR Code of Ethics requires realtors selling their own property to disclose their status both as an owner and as a real estate licensee when advertising the property, whether or not the property is listed with the firm. So you do have an ethical duty to disclose that you're a realtor and that, you know, when you sell your own property even. Okay.
Cindy, on the sign, if you have just a for sale by owner sign, you have to disclose you're a realtor if you're selling your own property also?
If that's all it says is for sale by owner,
Yeah, then no, right?
no, not on the sign, right?
Okay, let's say that you put it like on Zillow on the for sale by owner list. In the description there, do you have to say you're an agent or you're a licensed agent?
What's the name? Okay, hold on. Okay, in other words, unlike the law, selling their own property disclose the status both as an owner and realtor when advertising the property. So if that's an advertisement you do, when you advertise, right, the property, anything that's considered an advertisement. And gosh, we're going to get to what's an advertisement later, but pretty much everything that, you know, that you send. Oh, right. And if you're not using, if you are selling it for sale by owner and you're not using that company, you can't advertise the company's name on anything. You wouldn't put the company's name on anything. Okay, Mayor, this one comes up probably the most of anything. May a real estate licensee use a nickname in advertising? Do you have to use the name on your license when you advertise and when you do other stuff too? And the answer is no, not if it's a first name. So if your name is Mary Jane and you want to go by MJ, you're allowed to do that. Okay, but you can't, you are required. And I know that even we have people who don't necessarily do this, who change their name and use the new name without changing it on the DRE. You can't, you have to use the last name the DRE has, because the whole idea is that this person has to be able to find you. But you know, your last name could be, you know, could be Smith, and if you're using a different first name, they could never find you anyway. Right? It depends on your name, right? But anyway, it is always required.
Cindy,
Yeah.
for that one, for the last name, sometimes some last names doesn't fit there, but let's say Rukas Narcissian, can you put G Narcissian or that's illegal?
If it doesn't fit, you can shorthand it,
Okay.
right? That if it doesn't fit, I would say yes, because you got to do something and, you know, let's get it so it's at least reasonable. I mean, I've never seen anybody really get in trouble for any of these things, but I know we have agents who, I don't know, whatever, they get divorced or they get married and they change their name and they don't necessarily change it with the DRE, but they keep using the new name. Okay, but first names, they don't care about. May a real estate salesperson advertise themselves as an independent real estate professional? No, you're not independent unless you have a broker's license. And then of course that's different, but this is a salesperson. A salesperson wants to act and advertise as an independent and freelance real estate in California. He or she must become a broker. Okay, you're not independent, you're working under a broker. It's not independent. There are no exceptions. Okay. May a real estate salesperson advertise themselves as, for example, Doe Real Estate? Okay, let's assume Doe is their last name. So their last name and real estate. Can you go, can I say, hey, I'm using Ruben Real Estate? And the answer is no, because if it's too misleading and they think you are a broker. See, if you use the name real estate after your name, people are going to think you're a broker, that you're the real estate company and you're the broker. And again, they find that to be misleading and that it could be mistaken. And later we're going to see that they have some weird rules. It doesn't really matter how you say anything or what you say, it matters how it's taken. And boy, if that isn't subjective.
And Cindy, just to chime in here for everyone, they really do look at that, because about a year ago, Cindy and I had to go through I don't know, like 20 or 30 different people in the company that had, even on their websites, that was like, it might have said like Robert Hertel Real Estate or something like that. And we had like 20 or 30 people in the company that we had to clean up their advertising stuff because of
Right.
that one particular point. So
Right,
they
or saying
do
they're a
look at
team when
that
they're
stuff.
just all by themselves, right?
Right.
And
So
you
that
know,
is something they really do look at.
and we had a lot, like you said, 30 or 40, it was quite a few. Okay, must every real estate licensee include his or her DRE license number on all advertisements? Yes, yes, yes. Must display their 8-digit number on all solicitation materials intended to be the first point of contact, which is pretty much everything except for like later emails with a client who's already a client. Which means your email. Your email should have your DRE number on it. Okay, it just should. And then some people have it on their email and some people don't, but it should. And it can't, I know that I must be missing something here, but they make a big deal out of it. It's going to get in here somewhere. It can't be tiny. It has to be as big as the other writing on the page. And I just can't figure out why people make it so tiny. Are they really worried that someone's going to pick up their number and call and complain about them? And if they don't have the number, they're not going to complain. So I'm not sure why people make it so tiny anyway, but they, clearly it can't be. See question 8, yeah. And then mortgage loan brokers must also include the unique identifier assigned by the National Mortgage Licensing System and Registry on all solicitation materials as well. So if you're a lender and you're soliciting, you also have to have that information.
I have a question, Cindy, it's Miriam.
Huh?
Yeah, the question is, I'm ordering a new business card and I have the loan officer NMLS. So do I have to include that in my cards or can I have separate cards, business cards?
You could have 2 separate cards, and in your lending, you use one, and in your real estate, you use the other, but you don't want to use your real estate card if you're soliciting somebody, for lending.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
So, yeah, so you could, but you need to make sure that you don't mix them up.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, solicitation materials meant to be the first point of contact, business cards, stationery, websites, advertising flyers, all that kind of stuff. Some of this I didn't highlight because I wanted to skip it. Okay. Is there any rule regarding the type size of the DRE license number in all your advertising? The type size can be no smaller than the smallest size type used in the solicitation material. So I have seen people write one other thing in addition to their DRE number in like this tiny, unable to be read print. So, but later on, I'm surprised it doesn't say it here. Later, I cheated, I read ahead, but later on it says, it says that it has to be so that the little @ thing, that never mind, that's the realtor thing. It has to be big enough so you can see the @ thing after the realtor. That's another thing that we're going to get to I didn't know. Are there specific advertising guidelines in the NAR Code of Ethics? Yes, there are. 12.1, realtors may use the term free and similar terms in their advertising, provided that all terms governing availability of the offered product or service are clearly disclosed at the time. So my services are free. You're not even allowed to say that anymore, but you could say it if you told the truth. Gee, I'm getting paid 3% from the listing agent, and to you, you don't have to pay anything, but you would have to disclose that you are getting paid before you could say they were free, so that they know that that the seller's paying you, and that's got to be figured into the price. But I think now you're not even allowed to say. I feel like you're not allowed to say free ever. Well, that was that came from the lawsuit between the Department of Justice and NAR, and that was one of the things that came out of it, is buyer's agents can't ever say free.
Even if
Can
it's
you say free? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Cindy, even if, let's say, if you're doing a staging for free because you're doing it yourself and that's one of the,
that's free, yes. But you can't say, buyer, if you use my services, you don't pay anything. Well, that's not true. I'm getting paid from them. And so as long as you disclose that, as long as they understand that you are getting paid from someone else,
Or can we say free for market analysis too, or we can't say?
Yeah,
free
no,
for-
if you're doing a market analysis for free, absolutely, you can say it, as long as it's totally free, but again, they're going with the position that because you're getting commission from someone else and it's coming from the seller ultimately, it's not free.
So you can't use free in terms of actually helping them buy a house. So anything outside of buying a house, free
Right.
market
It's-
analysis,
Right.
Free,
Free is
whatever
free,
the
right,
case
you're allowed
may
to say
be.
whatever you want, right?
Yeah, that's fine. But in terms of, hey, if you buy a house through me, if you utilize my services to buy a house, then it's free. That's where you can't do
That's
it.
what you
You have
can't
to, yeah, that's where you have to disclose that you are getting paid, but they're not paying you. But even then, Cindy, I guess it could be a little just, it doesn't happen very often, but we do get deals here and there where it's up to the buyer's agent to pay the buyer. So,
Correct. Well, then it's
even-
clearly not free.
yeah, but I'm saying, because I think what a lot of people utilize with the buyer is like, look, you're not paying for any of my services. The seller will pay the buyer's agent commission. That could even land you in some hot water, because if it turns out to be a property where, let's say they're offering $1 or $0, and it doesn't happen often, but it happens every month. There's at least a couple transactions that's $0 or $1 or something like that, which means the buyer's agent the buyer has to pay the buyer's agent. So I would just be cautious of everyone. If you're even using that line, be careful.
Yeah, and that's where we're going. You'll see.
Cindy,
500 years.
I have a question. This is Chad.
Hmm?
Let me clarify what you're saying. So when we're working with a buyer, we're actually letting the buyer know that it's the seller. So technically, they're not paying us.
Right, you can say, right, you don't have to pay any commission because I'm getting my commission from the
Right.
seller, but it's not free.
In reality, it is free to the buyer.
Not really,
the
because if the seller's paying it, then the seller's gonna increase the price. Whether the buyer pays it directly, or whether or not the seller pays, it's gonna affect the price.
I know that, but that's understood. But my point was, if we're talking directly to the buyer, if the buyer will ask the question, am I paying you?
How much does this cost me? Right,
Yeah, am I paying you? How much is this gonna cost? Well, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, you're not technically paying me, so it's really,
correct.
if I say you are technically not paying me, so it's free on your end, but really I get paid through the seller.
Right, as long as, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make sure that buyers understand that you are getting paid.
Got it. Okay. I think what it is when we hear free, like everyone's so like, oh, you're not supposed to say that. But really, if you're working directly with the buyer, technically it's free on their end, but the seller is the one who's paying.
It's no charge on their end, yeah.
Right, yeah, okay. I think the best word is no charge.
Yeah, it's just to avoid that free word.
Right, yeah, okay, thanks.
Okay, are there specific advertising words realtors should be aware of that may violate advertising provisions of the Federal Fair Housing Act? And the answer is yes, but what we talked about before, I think last week, was anything that has to do with discrimination because of race, color, sex, religion, ancestry, physical handicap, marital status, or national origin. And I feel like there's more there that they didn't include that are not federal, and so they don't put them in here. But and then they give examples of words that can be used, and you're going to see these have been in the in not all of them, but people complain. Family room, does that mean you have to have a family to live here because we call it the family room? No, they're saying basically these are okay. You can still call something a mother-in-law suite. Everyone knows what that means. It's like a term of art. You can still call something a bachelor apartment. How about that? You could still call something a master bedroom. But again, this is under the Federal Fair Housing Act, not California. And California is trying to get away from all of these things. I don't get these other ones. Great view, fourth floor, walk up, I guess, you know. Walk-in closet could be discriminatory to someone who can't walk. You know, you can see this, but they're basically saying that, you know, no bicycles allowed. Does that mean the street doesn't allow kids? Or they're trying to not allow kids? So these are things you are allowed to say, though. What you're not allowed to say are stuff like white family home. This is advertising for rentals as well. No Irish, no Jews, Christian home, no wheelchairs. Those are the kind of things you can't say. And I think probably everyone knows you can't say those.
No short people.
Yeah, no lawyers, right?
So they essentially stole all of this from Blazing Saddles.
One of the great movies of all time for sure. Okay. Okay, advertisements may not contain limitations in the number or ages of children, nor may they state a preference for adults, couples, or singles, except for senior housing. And we're not going to do that today, but one day we will do senior housing because there's a lot of senior issues. Okay. Advertisements which use the legal name of an entity which contains a religious reference, for example, Roselawn Catholic Home, or an ad which contains a religious symbol may indicate a preference regarding religion. So, you know, I can't say that I only want Christians, but I put a big cross in my ad, you know, don't do that. Okay. But you could, okay, such references may be made if the stated ad includes a disclaimer such as this home does not discriminate on the basis of all these things. So as long as you say it, I guess you can be a little more liberal in your ad. Crazy, right? Are there any ethical rules limiting the rights of realtors to advertise that he or she sold the particular property? And this was one of our DRE issues, okay? Only realtors who participated in the transaction, the listing broker or the selling broker, may advertise that they sold the property. When you put a picture of a property on your flyer or website or whatever, and you put the word sold on it, you might not say, I sold this property, but it leads people to believe that you sold the property if you don't say otherwise, right? So what you can't do is you can't have a flyer like for a particular compound, say, and you know, you're passing it out to everyone, and you know, we represent people in this compound, and these 3 were sold recently for these amounts. Okay, you can't do that unless you sold those 3 or you have written permission from the person who sold them to put them in your ad. And of course, they're not going to give you that. You're going to give them credit and et cetera, et cetera. So you cannot advertise a property sold unless you sold it or you have written permission. This rule applies to every and any type of advertising, including but not limited flyers, postcards, newspapers, magazines, for sale signs, billboards, business cards, emails, faxes, radios, television. So you cannot advertise that you sold the property. Getting an echo here.
Cindy.
So now, Cindy, that means that even if a broker, like someone in our brokerage sold it, even though we include a language, we cannot do that any longer.
I think if I were you, I would at least call the agent and ask if it's okay, and then confirm it in writing. If it's someone in our brokerage, because maybe they won't mind. But technically, yes. Technically, no. If it's in the brokerage, you're allowed to do it because it's the broker rule, right? But I would certainly call them first and see if they have any reason why they wouldn't want you to. Or maybe they just want you to put their name or something. So,
but if they
The
don't
listing
ask,
agent-
we
the
need to
list-
put their name.
that the idea is in order for you not to say you sold the property. I mean, if you want to say Century 21 Masters sold these properties and then put them in, that's one thing. But if you say I sold this property, sold these properties, or you just put them up as like sold properties and you put them up and they're not yours, that's misleading.
Mm-hmm.
But you're
Okay.
trying to show somebody that you sold these properties, but you didn't.
How about if you state that you represented the buyer in the sale?
If the buyer's agent is allowed to say they sold the property. The listing or selling broker may advertise they sold the property. Either one.
Do we need to specify that we represented the seller?
No, I don't think so.
I mean, the buyer.
Just sold, no, you just sold It doesn't matter whether you represented the buyer or the seller. You both have the right to do that. You can if you want, but you know, if you're looking for buyers, maybe you want to say, you know, got this buyer, you know, whatever.
I have a question, Cindy. How about the flyers that are on the matrix for sold properties in the area? If one's sold, can you make a flyer, a customer flyer, and pass them out?
You mean like we can do for listings?
Yes, like when
No,
it's
I don't-
sold
I don't,
though.
I don't
after
think
it's
so.
closed.
There is no such rule for closings. That's what I've been looking for that.
So we can do that then. We can pass it out, you know, presented by Armin or sold property in our neighborhood, and then it just has my name on there. You know which ones I'm talking about, right? The customer flyers on the matrix.
Yeah, but you can't. Yeah, I mean, I know they have, the MLS has a scheme for a neighborhood market report, which is listings in the neighborhood. You can send out all of these listings in the neighborhood, but you have to put, you know, who the listing agent is, but you're allowed to do that without their permission. And if you do a neighborhood market report, but I can't find anything that allows you to do that for solds.
Cindy, there is I know a few agents in my area that they do what Arman was talking about. They do the market, you know, report for sale, pending, The only ones that I understand, and I talked to other brokers that I was in the past, that we can report the ones, we can do the report, the only ones that we can put the complete address is the ones that are already sold, and because it's a public record already once it's sold. But if you put a disclaimer saying that those properties, you know, you didn't sell these properties and belongs to another broker, blah blah blah, you are covered. Do you think that that's when we do those market reports are okay?
Yeah, but the market report makes you give credit to the person. I mean, in a market report, you have to say who the listing agent was and what you know, and give a phone number.
You need to give it a full disclosure who was the listing agent and everything. You cannot say listings don't belong to me,
No, and and when I send out my thing this week, I'll send out the CRMLS rules on a market report. It's an MLS rule of what you can put in it and what you can say and all that, because they have rules on how you can use the information in the MLS, and that's one of them.
Because I have this flyer, Cindy. I would really like to share it with you and the group right now to see.
Yeah, go ahead.
Me too.
I don't have
Cindy, I have a question. So if we sold the home, can we use the MLS picture to advertise? Or we
The
need to
answer
say,
is no, unless you get permission.
Oh, if you use a picture of someone else, that's a $2,500 fine.
No, if
someone
yeah,
else's
oh, okay. So even if we sold the property,
if it's not your picture, even if you're the buyer's agent, correct, even if you're the listing agent, if you don't have permission for whatever, no, you cannot use the picture. We've had people get fined for that.
That's right.
Do you see that? Do you see that flyer there, Cindy?
Yeah, okay.
What do you think? Is that something that can be passed out or not? No.
Okay, closed. You didn't sell this?
No. But this is what the MLS lets us print out, but maybe I've been making a mistake.
I don't think you can do this.
Oh, you don't think-
I will find out because the MLS sends you this, but I don't think you can do this.
No, I can print this on the MLS, but I need to
Right.
stop because I usually share around the neighborhood.
Boy, I want to know. I'm shocked.
You know what, Cindy? I don't think so, because it is not his listing.
Correct. There's nothing on here. That's why I'm surprised they let you do that.
Right. That's
Yeah.
why I wanted to know
Your
because
picture either. Regarding pictures, only the listing agent or the person.
Ugh.
Sorry, Cindy, that's what I learned.
Pictures
And
are
that-
crazy. They're
and
crazy.
that's a
Only the
closed
listing
one.
agent
That's a closed
or the
one, just so I can
Or the
clarify.
agent that they pay for the pictures that's allowed to use the picture. If you're a buyer's agent and you sell the house, you just go and take your own picture and you can advertise that, but you cannot take pictures from the MLS that somebody else paid for. That's what I learned in the past, Cindy. I don't know.
Right. I mean, I think that's right. I mean, Armin, I'm going to check on that. Why would they let you print it if you couldn't use it?
Well,
Exactly.
it's on the MLS. It's free. We can.
Armin
pull
is
the
special.
Right, because we have access to the MLS, but
Yeah,
there's no
we have
rules on
access to the
using
MLS.
MLS data. Right.
Yeah, but you don't want to get sued, Armand.
Yeah, no, this
Very
one,
special.
you cannot advertise someone's sold listing without their written permission.
I'm just gonna start putting Tessa's picture on there instead.
They're gonna be surprised when you show up, though. Okay.
Cindy, the reason why they let us do that is because if you are showing that property, you can put your name on it and give it to the buyer and say, here, I'm going to show you this
So, right,
property.
this is the flat, right, for the.
Yeah, or if you're doing an open house, you can do that.
Yeah, I've done that. When I'm showing property, I'll print that flyer out like that and it has your information or an open house.
Yeah, okay, that's different.
Cindy, if we are getting an agreement with these new builders, and we are having an agreement signed, and if there is something sold over there, or kind of listed over there, and we are trying to advertise, do we need to have kind of a permission for every single one of them? Or
Well, no, they
that
can-
contract would work?
You could ask them for blanket permission, right? You're okay, you may advertise any of our listings.
Okay.
Yeah, you can have a blanket permission as long as if they're fine with that. And of course they want you to advertise them. They don't represent, yeah, they'd love you to bring a buyer. Okay.
Cindy, question, please. And I'm trying to really make sure that I clearly understand about this advertising. So if we have listed something and sold it, obviously no problem. We can put the pictures and the names and everything else, no issues. However, if we have sold somebody else's listing, then can we advertise and say represented buyer and use our own picture? Okay.
You don't even have to say represented buyer. I sold this property and put your own picture in, right?
Okay.
Just don't
Okay,
use a
just
picture from the MLS.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Thank you.
Cindy, I have a question.
Okay.
Maybe this is relevant, maybe it's not. So when I'm previewing, if I was to shoot a quick video of the property that I'm previewing, not saying it's my listing, just saying, hey, listen, I'm going to preview this property. Not even saying necessarily what city it's in. Is that gray or is that?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if you can video someone's property, and maybe I assume you could send it to one person, but you couldn't use it as an advertisement. Right? You could, if you have a buyer and you say, hey, yeah, I looked at this property here, here's my video. I don't know for sure. I'm going to find out, Tim.
Let me clarify
Okay.
that, Cindy, because I've done that, what Tim was talking about.
I think, yeah,
When you
people
are
do.
actually very precise in saying that I am previewing this property on 123 Covina, whatever, right? And it's got a 3-bedroom, let me know if you want to do a private showing. You're not even saying that it's your listing. You're just letting the client know that you preview the property. It's not like I'm owning it. I'm just
sending it to a particular client, right? You're not sending it to your whole database.
We're actually sending it because remember how like before when we're doing our social media, we are advertising this to Facebook, whatever, or Twitter, and that we're previewing, we're doing a job as a real estate agent. I preview this property on blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying it's my listing. I'm just saying I'm previewing. Let me know.
You wouldn't use the word preview on a
private
listing,
showing.
right?
Right? Is there something wrong with that?
Yeah, I've done it that way too, Tess. It's like, hey, I'm previewing this property here
Yeah.
in San Dimas.
Yeah.
Let me know if you'd like any more information.
So
on it
you're
when you do it.
basically, okay, so when I make sure I ask the right question is we're not sending this to one client who happens to be looking for a property in San Dimas. We're sending it to a general database.
Yeah, or social media or something like that
Social
even.
media,
Yeah.
Okay,
Not saying that it's my listing.
right. No, I
Saying,
get it.
I'm previewing this property in this particular neighborhood because, well,
I
that's my
can't
job.
imagine this is okay, but I'll check.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it's kind of gray if we're not,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if we said this
would you
is
want
not our
someone taking
listing.
videos of
yeah.
the inside of your house and post them?
Well, if it's for sale, yeah. Want
Yeah,
all the exposure I
No,
can.
we're previewing it because we're not technically advertising that property. It's well, in a way we are, but we're advertising our services.
Our services, correct.
Maybe
right.
not disclosing the property address? Not disclosing the
No,
property
you're-
address?
Yeah, but
Yeah, I
That's
don't
the
think you
gray-
would. You wouldn't disclose the
would be
property.
That's the
There's no
gray
need
area
to.
part.
Right.
That's the gray
yeah, but
area
how
part.
will
Yeah.
people know that how will, like, let's say for instance, I'm looking in Covina and I am actually, advertising that I'm working in Covina. Obviously you have to tell them the address so they know and see if they're interested. But
Yeah, when you have a person who's interested, you would give them the address, but
it's a social media ad, Cindy.
right. Okay, let me